New chair of the Planning Commission, and I would like to call this meeting to order at
Recording in progress.
at 6:32. We will start with a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would like one of our commissioners to lead us in the pledge. So perhaps we can start with Commissioner Woodson.
Okay. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
Of the United States of America.
The Republic
And to the
which
which
stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
Justice
with
for all.
liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Woodson. Okay, next is the special announcements and communications from the floor. And now I need to see if we have anyone who wishes to speak. If you wish to speak, please raise your virtual hand. And I'll give you a minute, a little bit of time. I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand, so do any of the commissioners wish to make an announcement?
Yes, I'd like to say a few points.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Rana.
Yes, one thing is that we had change of chair. I say that it's kind of customary that we have a motion of thanks for the outgoing chair. Commissioner McCarthy did an excellent job, and I say that we must thank. We are a very, very congenial and very friendly group, and sometimes we differ also, but I feel that, whosoever is the chair or vice chair, whenever they go, or even a member, completing its tenure and going, we must have motion of thanks for everyone. So it's a proposal.
And I think it's an excellent proposal myself, and I think it would be appropriate. I'm the new chair, and I would like to thank our previous chair, now our vice chair, McCarthy, for leading us for the last couple of years on the Planning Commission. He did an excellent job. Definitely someone who is worth emulating and following that example. So thank you very much. And thank you for accepting the position of vice chair as well.
Yes.
Would anyone else like to make a brief comment? The only hand up. Brian
thank you,
McCarthy, Vice Chair.
Amadeo, and thank you for the kind words, Commissioner Rana. I think we're very lucky to have such an interesting group that is able to have civil discourse, and I hopefully set an example for other committees and boards and government organizations in the area too. So I'm very grateful for all of you. I do have a couple of comments. One is announcements rather. The Planning Commissioners Academy I know was held recently. I was not able to attend. Don't know if anyone on this commission was able to attend. If they were, I'd be interested to hear a brief, maybe report on what that was like. Second comment is the League of California Cities sister organization or child organization, the what is it called? The Institute for Local Government has just released a new Planning Commissioner's Handbook. It's web-based, and I've taken a peek at it. It's really fantastic. I highly recommend that everyone takes a look at it, and it can be found at ilgplanninghandbook.org. It actually has its own URL, and I'll send that link to staff so that they can disseminate it if they would like.
It might be something worth also for staff to maybe put on the website under Planning Commission so that it's accessible to anybody who is interested in the Planning Commission and how they work.
Sounds good. Send me the link and I'll put it up there.
Thank you. And then two other brief comments. I did attend the League of California Cities monthly planning department webinar, which was just this week actually. And that's where they mentioned the new ILG Planning Commissioner's Handbook. And the other thing that they mentioned is that the Institute for Local Government is actually going to be holding regional planning commissioner trainings. And so there'll be one for Monterey County, there'll be one for Yolo County, Sacramento County. I think the one for Monterey, I wrote the date down and I don't have it in front of me, but I will send that as well. I think it is in July sometime. And they welcome anyone to attend for free, planning commissioners throughout the area. So I will send that to staff as well so that that can be disseminated. And that's all I've got. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If there are no other comments from commissioners, we will move on. Next item is consent agenda. There is no consent agenda. And the next item is an informational item that is the California State University Monterey Bay Master Plan presentation. Before they begin, I would remind the commissioners that this is not just informational. This is something that we actually do not have any input to. Any input is made through the CEQA process, and that would be done by the City Council. If they have any concerns, they would send them on, but the Planning Commission does not. So this is just to let us know what they're doing. They are not part of our jurisdiction. They're their own jurisdiction. So I don't know which one of you is going to be presenting. Is that you, Matthew, or is this
I'll
Julie?
kick it off with a couple of words if you don't mind.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, Commission. My name is Julie Wyrick. I'm the Director of Campus Planning and Development at Cal State Monterey Bay. With me tonight is Matthew McClooney. He's our Senior Facilities Planner, and we appreciate the opportunity to present our master plan, an overview of our master plan, and walking you through the highlights tonight. To echo the Chair's comments, I would like to note that the public comment period for the environmental impact report has closed, but we did receive a comment letter from Marina City staff. And we're happy to answer any questions you have, but also please note that we're still in the process of responding to comments and preparing the final EIR. So it's still an ongoing process. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. McClooney.
Okay, thank you, Julie. And thank you, Planning Commission. Really excited to be here. Again, my name is Matthew McClooney. I'm the Senior Facilities Planner at Cal State Monterey Bay. I've been on the campus for a little over 5.5 years. And there is a presentation, I believe it is in the agenda packet. Is that something that I'm able to screen share, or is the commission able to post that?
You can share. You're a panelist. You have the same rights that I do. You can share your screen.
Okay, great.
Or we can. I have it. I have the whole packet up on my computer if you want. So
I'll defer to you.
Whatever you want to do, man.
Okay, I will share screen then.
All right.
So hopefully you're seeing the slide deck.
Yes.
Yes.
And then if I go into presentation mode,
There you go.
is that showing the presenter mode or the full screen?
No, you're good.
You're good.
Great. Okay. Well, I have a quick short dozen slides to go through. And as Julie mentioned, we have a campus master plan, and we're really excited to share with you the main tenets of that plan. We'll start, of course, by talking about our mission as a university. In our recent strategic plan update, we identified our mission being to prepare students to contribute responsibly to California and the global community by providing transformative learning experiences in an inclusive environment. And as Julie mentioned, we are in the stage right now of this plan where we have yet to take it to our Board of Trustees down in Long Beach for the Cal State system. We're planning to do that in May. And we just had the public comment period for the environmental analysis public review end on March 21st. So we are in that middle phase right now between the public comment period and the approval of the plan. So what I'm about to show you is what the plan entails. And actually, before I go on the first slide, I do want to also mention a little bit about what the plan is about, and beginning with the purpose behind it. So like cities have general plans, the university has a master plan, and it is a high-level visionary guiding document. Its purpose is to outline how the university can grow its physical facilities to meet the needs of our students, faculty, and staff. And I'll start with a little history. So the time frame you can see at the top here, this arrow, shows the plans that we've had in the past. So when the base closed, Fort Ord, and the university began in 1994, it wasn't until 1998 that the first master plan was approved, and there was a very bold vision for a large population for the university. Of course, the base itself had a very large population. After that first master plan, the second came in 2007, and that refined how the growth was actually looking on the ground. And you can see there's a very significant change in the enrollment target from initially 25,000 down to 8,500, with 3,500 identified as distance learners. We've now moved on to a third major master plan revision. And this process started back in 2015. 2015 was a year where we noticed we were on track with enrollment trends to meet that 2007 enrollment projection. We've been around 7,000 students for a few years now. And so seeing that trend, we knew it was time to look to the future. We also brought on our President Ochoa in 2013. And there was a lot of discussion about how we would grow the university. And so all of those reasons coalesced into starting the process in 2015 for a new master plan. Just to finish that timeline, it was in 2017 that we posted our first public draft of this plan. And since then, we've been going through the environmental analysis, the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, doing an environmental impact report. And it is just in the last few months that we've put out a draft of that and done the public comment period. And as I mentioned before, aiming for May approval for the plan at the Board of Trustees for the Cal State system down in Long Beach. So that is a very quick overview of plans we've had and process. But let me break it down a little bit into how the plan came about and what are the major tenets. So you'll see on the left side of the screen how the plan heavily involves stakeholder outreach from the start, including public charrettes on the campus. You can see a few pictures there in the middle of actual boards with Post-it notes from the early stages of the public charrettes. Again, that first draft was posted in 2017 and is still on our website today. There was a steering committee with a few subcommittees with targeted focus on transportation, sustainability, and art. We, of course, had student groups involvements, clubs and staff offices involved, and then, of course, outreach to the community, involving all of the local jurisdictions, cities, county, TAMC, MCWD, really all the surrounding jurisdictions sat down, discussed the intent of the plan and how we like to grow. And so what is that? What is the plan? Well, there's three takeaways I hope you have from this. We intend to grow the campus to an enrollment of 12,700 full-time equivalent, that's FTE students. 60% of the students housed on campus, and incorporating all that within a sustainability framework that we've identified through the Living Community Challenge. And I'll talk about each of these as I go through the slides. And you can see at the bottom right here where we had a baseline level of enrollment of 6,634 FTE in 2016, 2017, and how we aim to increase that to 12,700. So that is the main target, is growing the facilities in the university to meet that student enrollment growth. But of course, we do not plan in an island. We are part of a community to our north, to our south, to all around the Monterey Bay area. You can see a map here that shows a few of the developments just on the edge of campus. Some have newer names now than when this map was first created. But it's been critical to this process that not only do we engage with the surrounding jurisdictions to talk about our plans, but plan in a way that incorporates the plans around us. As you are, I'm sure, very familiar, there's a lot of planned growth around the edges of campus. A lot of housing, a lot of commercial, both in the city of Marina and the city of Seaside, as well as county projects. And so all of our planning have been with the eye towards engaging with those surrounding developments and expecting them to come in the near term and long term. And so that's been a critical part of our outlook, is that we do not plan, again, in an island, that we incorporate all that we know to this date for what is going to grow up around the campus. And it's very exciting to see. Zooming in on the campus now, what you're looking at is a bird's eye view, illustrative map of the campus, and I'll provide some orientation for those of you familiar with the campus. I hope you can see my cursor. In the center, you can see a triangular building. This is the library on campus. And then just to the north of it, this rectangle is our main quad. This plan looks at the physical facilities that would be required to meet 12,700 FTE students. The white buildings are existing buildings. The yellow are proposed new buildings. So there's a significant amount of growth that would be required to meet that enrollment target of 12,700. There would be new academic buildings, new support buildings, new housing, all would be part of this vision. And you can see on this map, it's almost 50-50 of just how many new buildings matching the existing. And in comparison, you could see in the top right, a call out from the 2007 plan. And this is brought here not only to identify the progress we've made, and that's what you see encircled in yellow, those buildings that were identified on that plan that we have since built, but also identifying how the difference in this plan and its land use. Whereas in the 2007 plan, on the southern part of campus, there was a significant plan to increase the building within the Oak Woodland area. We have since shifted away from that and kept the Oak Woodland as it is, and focused that development in the interior of campus on the disturbed land inherited from the Army. It happens to be usually small parking lots, paved blight that we are working to get rid of, and thus creating a denser urban environment and one that is pedestrian safe, allowing students to go from class to class in under 10 minutes without getting back in their cars. This is the same map, except it shows buildings by use. And so you can see the legend on the bottom right shows the academic in blue, and then I'll jump down to the residential in yellow. Those are the two main building types that you can see on this map here. And then I'll point out, again, one of those main tenets of this plan in the top right, which is a zoom out of the entire campus property, showing our East Campus housing area, and how the intent of the plan to not only increase enrollment growth, but maintain a high level of student housing. We currently have over 50% students housed on campus, which is very unique among the Cal State system. So the intention is to maintain and grow that, maintain the at least 60% housed, as well as introducing additional resources for faculty and staff to increase that percentage of those housed on campus. We are, I want to say, about 35 to 40% faculty staff housed, so that would be an increase. And the general plan being that right now we have both faculty staff and students housed in the East Campus area. The students out there would be moved into new facilities on the main campus, as well as new enrollment moved into student housing on the main campus. And additional faculty staff would be able to move into those former student housing areas in East Campus, thus meeting our housing goals. We know that housing is not only critical to the student experience and being on campus, engaging with the resources of the university and the extracurricular activities, but also, of course, making sure that that option is available to students and helping us attract our student population and provide that resource to them. Just a lot of numbers on here, but I'll just call attention to how these facilities to meet that enrollment target started with, of course, an Army base. And the Army base itself was not built to be a university. And so we've had quite a bit of work done over the last nearly 3 decades, including over 300 military structures demolished and new facilities like our Otter Student Union, you can see on the right here, built in just the last 2 years. The plan itself calls for around 5 new academic buildings. And I say around because we have a general square foot number, and we break that down based off of buildings that we've built in the past and what their sizes are, what they typically tend to be. So that could be a little different in the long run, but for this planning purpose, 5 new academic buildings, 9 new residence halls, and additionally demolishing Army structures that have met the end of their usable life. The university is currently reusing and has renovated dozens of Army buildings, and we hope that as those phase out, we're able to add new facilities. Of course, a huge part of how we make this entire plan sustainable and how we meet demand is through elements of energy and water use. The Cal State system has a new sustainability policy just from the last few weeks that identifies a carbon neutrality goal of 2045. And this would be realized through design and the efficiency and resiliency of each project we do, each building we build, and all the campus infrastructure. We are striving for a net positive energy campus as state regulations allow. And the key for our energy projection is really reducing that natural gas dependency, essentially how we heat our buildings, moving towards more sustainable modes. And then, of course, water, making sure that our master plan build out makes every project as water efficient as possible and manages the stormwater that we capture on site. Quickly, I'll mention a little bit about transportation, yet another very important topic that we analyzed through the master plan. And you can see here, again, that map of the campus. The blue lines are the road network. We inherited from the Army a fairly vast road network. What this vision outlines in the dotted lines is closing several of those roads in order to advance that pedestrian first environment, removing those vehicle conflict points and consolidating parking on the periphery of the campus, and providing other options like e-scooters and transit on the interior of the campus. The sustainability framework itself started with 3 priorities: placemaking, stewardship, and partnership. Living Community Challenge, if you haven't heard of it before, is analogous to LEAD, and it is identified at the community scale, LCC, as well as the building scale, Living Building Challenge, or LBC. And so it looks at all these different elements you see at the bottom here, from water to habitat, mobility, and place. But what it does also, that is a big reason why we centered on the Living Community Challenge, is that it focuses on beauty and equity in addition to all of these other more traditional topics. And we are proud that from the International Futures Living Institute, which created the LCC, we are the first university to have a LCC approved vision plan. I think I just have 2 more slides. Environmental review. So I mentioned that we started the process back in 2015, and it was in 2017 that we started the EIR, or Environmental Review CEQA process. Started with, of course, a scoping meeting. You see a photo from that in the center here. And then over the last several years, really did a deep analysis on all the topics you see listed on the right, and how the master plan, from our first intention and through this analysis, proved to be as much of a self-mitigating plan as possible. And you can see the result of what we've recently put out in the draft EIR as to showing most of these topics, from air quality to biological resources, greenhouse gas emissions, land use, traffic, most of them fall within the less than significant category. And so this really was key to our whole plan, that from the start, we wanted it to be self-mitigating and in a way that managed through a good plan to not have significant impacts. And again, while the public comment period is closed, we are now preparing those responses to comments from the letters received, including from the City of Marina. And over the course of the next few weeks, preparing those and releasing those in anticipation of that May Board of Trustees meeting. So what's the next step for this plan? How is it realized and made real on the ground? Well, the outlook for the plan does look out 2 decades, and we have a ways to go to meet that 12,700 student enrollment. And we're going to get there brick by brick. And the next building we have identified is what we call Academic 4 for simplicity's sake, but it's identified for the College of Science for a new mechatronics engineering program and increased space for our sciences programs such as marine biology. You can see a rendering of it in the top right. And this master plan and the EIR did identify near-term projects, 5 of them particularly, including the Academic 4 building. You can see on the bottom right, those buildings identified, those projects identified on the map, including Academic 5, the following academic building project, the student rec project, and 2 housing projects that total 1,000 beds. So these are the next few projects we've identified as priority projects to help us along the way and help us to make a significant start on this master plan. And then, of course, the bottom left, you'll see a few of those follow-on plans that were identified through this process that would help us identify the next steps in each of these topic areas. Whereas this master plan is a visionary high-level plan, each of these plans would help us strategize on each topic. And that's the presentation. I hope I didn't speed through it too fast. I'm not sure if we're gonna have a Q&A right now, but really just wanting to wrap up and say thank you for this opportunity to share this plan. As you can tell from starting in 2015, it's been a long time coming, and a lot of folks in the university have contributed to it. So we're excited to share about it and excited about what it means for the campus as well as for surrounding jurisdictions like the City of Marina.
Thank you, Matthew and Julie. And yes, we will at least allow the commissioners to ask questions. And we do have at this point 1 hand raised, and that is Commissioner McCarthy.
Thank you, Chair Amadeo. Thank you, Matt, for the presentation. I'll add some levity by telling you, and I doubt I'll get a single person to agree with me, but I always tell people the best kept secret on the peninsula is the CSUMB Dining Commons for dinner. So highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. But it's kind of ironic this presentation comes before us because, you know, I reached out to you, Matthew, and some other CSUMB staff before I had learned this was coming before us. Because I did want to make some comments about dark sky lighting, and regrettably I did miss the cutoff for the CEQA comments. But I still want to make some comments either way at this forum. And, you know, one thing that I always tell people is that we mutually are both kind of these unique coastal areas that have neighbors that put out almost no light, right? The Pacific Ocean and the Ford Land. And so I think that makes it all the more important to consider dark sky lighting concepts in our development. And certainly I think the City of Marina has tried very hard to do that. And you will see some of that in even some of tonight's other agenda items. But we can't do it alone. It is imperative that we get the help of our neighbors in order to be successful in that quest. And so after talking with you on the phone, I mean, I have reviewed some of the master plan documents, and I see that there are some references and kind of dark sky principles being applied, but not a lot of references of dark sky compliance or certification. And so I'd really encourage all of us, CSUMB, the City of Marina, and neighboring municipalities to really look at what more can be done regarding preserving the dark sky. And the great thing about doing this is that I think it will help meet some of our energy saving goals that you spoke about in your presentation. I know that there were some comments received by Landwatch that looked at greenhouse gas emissions and how those numbers were calculated. And I guess I just wonder if there's some opportunities to look at what's being done regarding dark sky and maybe save some greenhouse gas emissions by further tightening down the language that is used to require dark sky certification. And that's all I've got. Sorry, I was a little bit long-winded there.
So Matthew, did you want to respond to his comments?
Well, yeah, of course. And I appreciate the comments. I think dark sky is something that we've been aware of for a while, and know that our growth needs to be mindful, and that's of the surrounding community and of course our habitat. And that's exactly why we endeavored through the CEQA process on this project, as well as our other projects. And one that I can point you to also, on our website, we have information about our recent mitigated negative declaration project for our stadium renovation. And there's documents there about our lighting studies and how we focus on this among the many topics, knowing it is something that there are standards out there that we need to constantly be aware of improving upon. So while a lot of the comments, all of the comments we've received on this plan are currently being drafted into response to those comments, I could say for now that your comments are noted and appreciated, and that is something that we will be looking at every single project we have going forward.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from commissioners? Not seeing any. I do have, I'm going to say questions. When you showed the transportation issues, in order to make it more pedestrian friendly within the interior of the campus, and at the same time, only 60% of your students will be living on campus. That means 40% are commuting. And I would assume with commuting students that they are primarily the older students who have families, et cetera. The students that I know personally are in that group. So how are you addressing and working with surrounding communities, including Salinas, because people will commute from Salinas to the campus to go to school? How are you working with them on transportation issues?
That's a fantastic question, and we've been working for several years now with all of the surrounding jurisdictions and increasing those modes to campus that are alternative modes, more sustainable modes, and providing those as options and resources for our students. I'll give you an example. It was several years ago that in working with MST that we identified an unmet need between Salinas and the area around the campus. And since then, there's been a dedicated route between the campus and the downtown Salinas Transit Center. That is something that we, on an annual basis, work with MST on the hours and schedule for that route. So there are every way from transit, bicycle and pedestrian modes. We know that all these developments that will come up around the campus, it's a great opportunity to advance the infrastructure that hasn't been there in the past. For whatever reason, the Army didn't install a lot of sidewalks. And so we know that that's an area to focus on, both on the campus as well as connecting off the campus. So you're absolutely right that while 60% is housed on campus, there is that other 40% that we know we need to provide those safe, affordable, and sustainable modes to the campus.
And then another question, because you just brought up affordability, and we all know housing is a serious problem in this area, throughout California, and really throughout the country, that homelessness is an issue. And at one point, we were having an issue with students living in their cars because there was not enough on-campus housing, and there wasn't affordable housing available off campus, and that doesn't seem to be getting any better. So I'd like to know how the university is addressing the issues of those students that will have to live off campus, so that we don't have an issue in surrounding jurisdictions of students living in their cars.
Sure. And I think you're speaking to something that is one of the driving forces behind why housing is such a big focus of this plan, making sure that our students have the means to access their education and have all of the supporting resources they need to succeed. And housing is first and foremost one of the most important. I will also call out, just in the last 3 years, I want to say, we've created a basic needs office on the campus, and that's core focus has been on identifying and supporting those on campus who are marginalized economically, socially, or otherwise, making sure that they have the basic resources that they need. And so I would just return to how one of the main thrusts of this plan is focusing on housing, because we know that costs are so high, not just in California, but this area particularly. And if the university could play a role in providing that resource and availability for students, that we're going to try as much as we can. I'll also bring in Julie here in case she has anything else to add to that.
Thank you, Matt. I would like to add that the state of California is now requiring all CSUs and UCs to provide a report on the affordability of student housing. And so it's certainly on the radar of our leadership, and a primary tenet of our master plan to provide the additional housing and excuse me, really work with those underprivileged and marginalized students.
Thank you. I see that we now have a question from Commissioner Woodson.
Thank you, Commissioner Amadeo. A couple things. I've been kind of hesitant to raise it because I know this is more of an information brief, but I do have kind of, unfortunately, around transportation. And this is just kind of insight to the planning process. And I'm just interested to know the kind of the background underlying theory. So you have 6 scenarios that you modeled for VMT, that 3 of them were built around having the East Side Parkway and 8th Avenue as the routing around the main cantonment area of the university. And I'm just curious, knowing where the university stood at a number of public hearings over the last 5 years, that the 8th Avenue was going to be a primary cut through to reroute traffic around the main cantonment, and it looks like that is still the plan. And then the second was, at the time, the theory was still to support TAMC and MBAG to route traffic along the East Side Parkway if it was built, and that was going to be the supporting alternative that CSUMB had presented. And I'm wondering if that has changed at this point, or is that the prevailing alternative suggestion?
Yeah, so you're noting, just for others reference, what was formerly called the East Side Parkway. I think there was another name that came just in the last few years, I'm forgetting.
No, I'm citing it back to what you have in your document just for ease of
Sure,
reference.
sure. Well, I can tell you that the EIR analysis doesn't take a position as it was a project through FORA, identified for the region and the base after it closed. But what it does try to do is try to lay out all the scenarios that may happen. And so having the project, looking out at the future growth scenarios with that, without it, making sure that we're covering all our bases in the analysis. So while it is included there in several of the scenarios, the plan itself isn't taking a position on the project, as it wouldn't be our project to do, but we're just making sure that we're covering it in each of our analyses.
Okay, I appreciate that, and that just in some ways answers my question. My concern, and the reason I raise it, is that from a community partnership development perspective, there was a lot of theory behind it, and there were the staffing at the time, and I won't go into any farther than that had very strong opinions about the support for that route to protect the university's containment area at, arguably, you could say, the expense of all the surrounding neighborhoods. And so I was curious at if that grounding philosophy within the engineering and design department of CSUMB is still kind of the philosophy, because that does drive a lot of things in the future as you growth and partner with this. Because when I go back to it and I think about things like the VMT and the considerations that you wrote here, I also know that I have 4 graduate students who moved in next door to my house. Great neighbors, love having them there. They have 4 cars, and all 4 cars, I mean, I live at California Rain Dollar, so I live less than a mile away from main campus. Every single one of them drives in. That's what they do. That is what they're used to doing. It's not what I used to do. When I lived 1.5 miles from campus in Florida, I rode my bike to and from campus, but they have a different philosophy, and I respect it. It was more just, how do we incorporate that? Because the transportation grid in this area of Marina is significantly impacted by our road system, which is not necessarily conducive, because we have a couple of choke points that can't be fixed. And then in the downside is, how does that traffic flow affect the Salinas, because of something, again, that's completely out of any of our control here, which is the 68 corridor. So it's just trying to, as we are, even though you are separate, is that all 3 of us, Seaside, you, and Marina, that we are all working towards solving that transportation problem without actually creating secondary or tertiary effects for our other community neighbors, being us to you and you to the other 2 communities, etc.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you said there about collaboration and how it's going to take partnerships. And for those students living near yourself in Marina, that working with the city of Marina, identifying through the city of Marina plans and the campus plans of how we can make sure the infrastructure is there, programs are there, that they can feel safe to ride their bicycle to the campus, and that they've got the resources at both ends to make that happen. So I just echo that, thank you for mentioning that, and that it is going to take partnership.
Thanks. There's a last kind of comment to everyone. I actually really like, as long as it is, I actually really enjoyed looking through the general plan, the master plan, because you can see that the amount of effort that was put in on the discovery side to be able to support that, because I could not have created a report on the back end without the significant impact and input on the front end. So I appreciate their report, and maybe just a sidebar, maybe local cities could use the same contractor. I'll just throw that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We now have a question from Commissioner Rana.
Yes. My question is that the university is based on former Fort Ord, and I have read a lot of reports about the groundwater pollution in this area because of spillage of great deal of chemicals during the existence of or the military cantonment in this area. And some of those stories and reports are quite kind of of concern. So I'm sure you're also going to be using some part of the groundwater. So how are you going to address some of these issues if it comes up?
Well, I think that's a great point. And another one of our partnerships is with MCWD and our other water jurisdiction partnerships. We, of course, don't produce our own water. And so we do tie into the larger system. So if that is something that comes up as an issue, I think that we'll be in concert with addressing that with all the surrounding jurisdictions. So I don't want to speculate too much on what issues might be, but we do know that water is crucial to our growth, just like the growth of all the communities around us, and making sure that through every project that we do, that we are integrating efficiencies and safety measures in all of our new buildings, all of our new infrastructure. Julie, would you like to add anything to that one?
No, I think you covered it, Matt. The key being that our water comes from Marina Coast Water District as well. So, we're working closely with them to make sure that everyone is safe.
And next is Commissioner Herr.
Well, mine is more out of curiosity because in one of your presentation slides, you mentioned that East Campus student housing will be moving to main campus. So does that mean that there will be new construction planned by the university to build more faculty housing in those empty space, or will the place, space be renovated and then just faculty move in? Because I did hear from CSUMB faculty, and it's something that we all experience, how it is challenging to buy a house here in this area in California overall. So I was wondering how the university considers the welfare of the faculty in terms of this master plan.
Sure. Thank you for that question. We are not in this plan including new construction or housing in the East Campus housing area. The students that take up approximately half of the current East Campus area, the quantities of students there would be filled in new housing on the main campus. And so those units would be turned over to faculty and staff when that occurred. When that new student housing was built on the main campus, those units in East Campus would be backfilled with faculty and staff and made available for additional faculty and staff. But no new construction in this plan is identified in that East Campus housing area. But I will echo your point of just how, for not only students, but also our staff and faculty, how crucial available affordable housing is. And I'll just say from my own personal experience, before I was here 6 years ago, I was out in Virginia and I'm so excited to have an opportunity in California. And I moved into the East Campus housing area. And that is a big reason that of how it was possible for me. And I think that's a story true for many.
So basically faculty will use student housing.
Well, there are units that are nearly identical to the current faculty staff housing out there, because these are units that the university did not build, but they were inherited from the military. And so the units in the student area, as well as the units in the faculty staff, are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. If there are no other questions from commissioners, then I'm going to thank our presenters tonight, Matt and Julie. We really appreciate you coming and spending some time with us, going through this and answering questions and addressing comments from the commissioners. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so now we're going to move on. Next is our first public hearing. And I'm going to bring up my screen so I can see all of it. So this is a public hearing on 345 Paul Davis Drive, a sign permit. The Planning Commission is to consider adopting a resolution approving the installation of a single-sided wall sign at Cicada Seed of America, Inc. That's 3345 Paul Davis Drive. It's exempt from CEQA per Article 19, Section 13311. Class 11 project planner is Alec Barton. And so if we can hear the staff presentation.
Thank you,
Yes.
Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So as Chair Amadeo mentioned, this is the sign permit application for Cicada Seed located at 3345 Paul Davis Drive. Okay. The application is for a single-sided wall sign, which would be composed of a chloroform material. It's a blue and white color scheme that incorporates 3D lettering, and it would be attached to a cinder block wall via stud mounting. The sign is consistent in all respects with the Marina Municipal Code. The allowed square footage at this site would be 200 square feet and a maximum of 4 signs. The applicant is proposing an approximately 16 square foot sign and just a single sign. So it's consistent both with regards to the number of signs and the overall square footage of the sign. A variety of sign types are allowed in this zoning district. And so the type of sign, which is a wall sign, is also consistent. Here's a concept of this sign. As you can see, the blue and white color scheme. And this is what the sign would look like attached to the existing cinder block wall. Staff would recommend that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving this sign permit, as it is consistent in all respects with the Marina Municipal Code and the city's adopted design guidelines and standards. It is exempt from CEQA due to a categorical exemption pertaining to on-premise signs. Any questions? I'd just like to note at this section that the existing municipal code pertaining to signs exempts only a narrow range of signs from sign permits, things like nameplates and temporary signs. All other signs require sign permits, and with the exception of sites that have an adopted master sign program, all sign permits are required to come before the Site and Architectural Design Review Board for review and approval. And so staff would welcome input at this time from the Planning Commission about this process. If the Planning Commission would like to continue to review sign permits such as the one before you tonight, or if the Planning Commission would suggest changes to the municipal code to have a ministerial review process for sign applications such as the one before you. And I'm happy to entertain any questions at this time.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions or comments regarding the comments from, who made the comments? Alec. I'm sorry. I'm a little overwhelmed with all of the pictures up here. So if any commissioners have any comments, would you please raise your hand, your virtual hand? I am not seeing any comments. I was thinking somebody would comment at least about the possibility of this not being reviewed by either the Planning Commission or the Design and Architectural Review Board.
Yeah, and that
this type of signage.
Yeah, so part of the reason why we're bringing this to the Planning Commission's attention is I did ask Alec to bring it because as everybody's aware, I'm new. I'm kind of doing a 360-degree review of all the employees and all of our municipal codes. And this is one of the things that I pointed out that, most cities, this would not even be barely even a building permit, but there's no threshold in the sign ordinance to not take this to Planning Commission, which seems like a little bit of regulatory overkill. And so we're really looking to hopefully get the consent of the commission to later in the year come back so that we can change the muni code for these type of things that really should not have to go to the commission. So
And you have gotten a response from Commissioner McCarthy. Boy, am I tongue-tied.
Thank you, Chair Amadeo. I feel like I'm being a little baited, but I'll bite. And I'll be brief with my comments because they don't really deal with this particular application. But I do think that our sign ordinance as a whole has issues. Christy Hopper had started us down a path of taking a look at our sign ordinance, and I'm very appreciative of that. And of course, the priorities of the city kind of changed, and things got in the way of that, if you will. And I guess I'll leave it at that. I look forward to taking a closer look at the sign ordinance. But this particular application, I don't know that I have any questions or see any major issues, but I would love to hear from other commissioners.
So commissioners, other commissioners, yes. And your name escaped me. So this is Commissioner St. John. And the reason it escaped me is he is new.
Yes, I think that this particular proposal or this sign is very straightforward, that it's 100% compliance with the regulations, and that if we repeated the signs, the going through the planning commission over a year's period, it would be somewhat a waste of time and very repetitious. The review by staff was quite thorough, and it should, we spend more time right now talking about whether it should come before us or not than go ahead and approving it and moving on. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Woodson.
So thank you, Commissioner Amadeo. I guess my overall ones, I don't have an issue with this, and we could go straight to voting on this, and I'd be fine with that. To answer the bigger underlying discussion point of whether this comes forward to here or not, or whether it should go to some lower level, whether it's just ministerial or anything, I think this goes back to kind of a bigger discussion that needs to happen on kind of, okay, not only where our policies and procedures are and what should be done and how that should be looked at, and we should table that for a standalone discussion, but also to the ultimate decision point on the design review subcommittee and the tree subcommittee at the same time. And it should all really kind of come back to this, that we are not where we were at 2 years ago. It's 2 years later, everything has kind of moved back to a different area. And maybe it's time to relook at kind of this, the overarching design and the kind of process that we're doing everything. So I don't think it necessarily pertains just to this. I think it's the overall. Thanks.
Understood.
Brian, your hand is up. Did you have another comment?
No, it shouldn't, but I'd like to make a motion if there's no other comments.
It's a public hearing, so first I need to open the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so yes, this is a public hearing, and I will open the public hearing for any of our attendees to make comment on. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand and you will be recognized. And I'm not seeing any hands. I'll wait for another few seconds. And still no hands. So I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. I would entertain a motion. And yes, go ahead.
Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution approving sign permit SG 2022-01 for the installation of a single wall sign at Cicada Sea America at 3345 Paul Davis Drive.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
I second.
Commissioner Herr is seconded. So we have a motion by Commissioner McCarthy, a second by Commissioner Herr. And if we can have a roll call vote, please.
I can do the roll call. Commissioner
Richard St. John,
Yes.
Commissioner Herr,
Yes.
Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodson.
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Brian McCarthy.
Yes.
And Chair Amadeo.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, so we move on to our second public hearing. That is a permit extension for 3125 DeForest Road. The Planning Commission of the City of Marina is to open a public hearing, take testimony from the public, and consider adopting a resolution approving a time extension for an additional 24 months of a combined development permit consisting of a conditional use permit, that's a CUP, for a multiple family residential development exceeding 25 units per acre and site and architectural design review for a new 5-story 58 unit apartment complex as currently sited and designed at 3125 DeForest Road. CEQA determination was a negative declaration. And in this case, the project planner is Christy Hopper. And so Christy, if you can lead us through the staff report.
Great. Give me just a second. I'll share my screen. Of course, I can never get everything up, so I can start it. Okay. So some of you were on the Planning Commission several years ago. This is all the way back in 2018 when this this development was approved. So I'll be pretty brief with it, but if you've got any questions, of course we can go over some things in more detail. And so what the request right now is a permit extension, which is allowed by our code. Just to orient you a little bit, where the red rectangle is, and right now we're actually looking north is to on the left hand side, south is on the right as far as my screen goes. The Junsei Oaks senior units are here where my cursor is, the post office, the MST Transit, and then there's a vacant parcel directly behind at the extension of DeForest Road. This is the 3D rendering of the proposal that was reviewed back in 2018. As you can see, it's 5 stories, it's 58 units. There is affordable housing that is integrated into the design, rooftop decks. So this went through a litany of permits, and I'll go through those, and was ultimately approved. So the City Council actually adopted the whole package back in 2018. And there was the initial study, negative declaration, there was a general plan amendment, general plan map amendment, and a specific plan was adopted. There was an amendment to the official plan line because our official plan line that we inherited from the county actually had a cul-de-sac at the end of DeForest Road. So that was modified. As well as this combined development permit to exceed 25 units per acre, and that's your conditional use permit, as well as site and architectural design review. As part of also what the City Council adopted was some density bonus provisions to allow the 5 stories and some modifications to unit mix and that type of thing, which is allowed by state law. So the City Council did rezone the property from C1 or retail business to specific plan Shores at Marina, and that specific plan guides the development of the site. So all of the approved entitlements are in place and they will not expire, and with exception of the combined development permit consisting of the conditional use permit and site and architectural design review. That the permit is set to expire, was set to expire November 20th of 2020. So that was 2 years from the date of City Council approval. There was an assembly bill that went into effect on January 1, 2021 as a result of the COVID crisis that provided that housing entitlements that were issued and were in effect as of March 4th, 2020, and that would have expired prior to December 31st, 2021, were automatically extended by 18 months. So with that automatic extension, the new entitlement expiration date is May 20th of this year. The property owner and applicant did apply for the extension of the combined development permit. And what they're citing is there's been limited options for financing with the affordability restrictions. They're also been seeking some grant options. The other thing is they're really waiting for the downtown vitalization specific plan to be adopted, because that will impact this site. And also, hopefully have some more grant opportunities, and they're continuing to pursue their funding. So with the Planning Commission approval, this permit would be extended to May 20th of 2024. And there's a letter that in the application, the applicant feels that that would be sufficient time to secure funding and to proceed with the project. So staff reviewed the project for continued compliance with all applicable zoning regulations and the adopted specific plan. The plan has not changed at all from the what the City Council approved, or the Planning Commission saw, and the City Council approved in 2018. And so approval of the extension request is appropriate. I do have a recommended motion for adopting a resolution for the permit time extension, and I will take any questions.
Okay, so thank you, Christy. And commissioners, does anyone have any questions on this item? And Brian McCarthy.
Thank you, Chair Amadeo. So this entitlement was passed in 2018, I think the presentation said, and since then there's been a number of laws passed that take away some local control from entities like us. Is it fair to say that if this were to be entitled today, that we would have even less control than we did in 2018 in some respects? I know that's a little bit of an ambiguous question, but is that generally maybe true, or is that hard to say?
No, thank you, Vice Chair McCarthy. It's not an ambiguous question, because you're correct. If it would come back before us, because the city's working on the adoption of objective standards, if this were to come back to us today, similar to the project that you saw at 3298 Del Monte, we would have very limited ability to make any modifications to design and that type of thing without objective standards. So you're correct. Now, but even back when this one was approved, there were some elements of state law that were applied that did limit the city's ability to deny the project.
Okay, thank you. And you stole my opportunity to be critical and talk about objective standards. And I'll still use the opportunity to say I think that should be one of our biggest objectives. And so I'm glad that that's being worked, and I really look forward to taking a look at those. That's it for me.
Thank you. And Commissioner Rana.
Yes, I have a business interest within 500 feet of this property. So do you think that I can recuse myself from discussion on this point?
Yeah, and moving forward, we do need to disclose that before the staff gives their presentation, and we do ask that you shut off your video right now and you shut off your audio until this item's done. Thank you.
Okay.
And if he can put his hand down as well. Commissioner Woodson.
Thanks. I guess I have a number of comments on everything tonight. My only question here really is if we extend this, that again, there were specific bonuses that were provided based on the current laws that existed at the time that this was initially done. So the height extension, the change in parking, but the laws in California have continued to evolve on development, as we have seen with other developments in the city in the past 8 months that have come before the city council for approval. The parking lot bonuses and have come up, or number of parking spaces. And I understand that the proposal as is written right now, but is there anything that precludes the petitioner from changing that and reducing the parking spaces down to a more minimal number? And the reason I raise that is that This is unlike other developments that have come before the planning commission and the city council that had alternate areas that overflow parking could go into. This does not have that. I mean, this is nestled completely within kind of a fenced in area with Reservation Road as the only overflow parking, and that doesn't really work.
Right.
So my concern would be that looking at the parking density moving forward and not knowing what's really happening in the community, do we have the numbers to really say that they are only going to have one car per 2-bedroom apartment? Because that's looking at a 0.5 density right now is what their plan is.
Right. And so at this point, the density bonus, the concessions and incentives that were granted by the city council as part of the density bonus are not under discussion at this point. Okay, so when they received the density bonus for the provision of affordable housing, there were certain concessions. I think they were allowed to have, I believe it was 3, that they requested. One was a modification in unit mix, one was height, and I believe some modifications to parking. I thought it was covered parking, but it may have modified the mix. But what I also remember is that there were some provisions in state law that allowed them to have the parking reduction it really independent of whatever the city's parking requirements are, because it was really in state law for that. So if we were looking at this today, the applicant could, if in applying for a density bonus, could continue to ask for whatever concessions and incentives that they choose, if it basically helps the development pencil out. Now, it's the onus is, as we remember at the Del Monte development, if the city doesn't agree with that, the onus is on the city to do parking studies or things like that. And so, yeah, so that's how it would be today, as it was back in 2018 for the density bonus.
Thanks. I think that's my concern, is that even though this isn't really the discussion point, that's necessarily the root cause of what tonight's agenda item is about. If we do approve this, and if they then choose to come back at a later date and request that modification, are because of the state laws, because of the lack of objection time, because of these different things, because of the changes that have occurred, are we then going to have our hands tied as a city that really there's nothing we can do? They can basically say, well, we're going to build this regardless. Here are the new incentives and the new bonuses that are authorized, and really we appreciate that we're working with you, that you want to, but at the same time, the state says we don't have to listen to you anymore, so we're not going to.
Well,
and I'm not saying that the petitioner is going to do that, but
not
it's more
necessarily.
it's just a bigger concern, because
so let me answer. So I've worked on quite a few affordable housing projects. So to answer your question, if they want to change the project, yes, it would have to come back. So you're not going to lose your authority. But your underlying question is the state continually trying to get cities to streamline development? And is case law and how the laws are moving towards limiting cities' ability to regulate projects that have density bonus? The answer is absolutely yes. So I just came from Los Altos. I worked on a 50-unit condo project where they got quite a few concessions and waivers, which they are allowed to by law. But they had to ask for those. That was part of the density bonus agreement with the city. And so it'd be a similar situation here, but that's not what is before you today. Right. Today is merely just an extension of the permits. If additional concessions or waiver are being asked, they have to ask for those, and we have to approve them.
So Commissioner Woodson, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, I think I understand the issue. So thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? I don't see any. So this is a public hearing, so we will go out for the public hearing. Any member of the public who wishes to ask questions or make comments may do so at this time by raising your virtual hand and be recognized. And I think everybody's here for the same purpose. So I see no hands raised. We'll close the public comment, bring it back to the commission, and I will entertain a motion. And by the way, as chair, I don't make motions, so. We can't move on without a motion.
Chair Amadeo, I'm actually looking for the staff's recommended motion in my packet, but I'll take a stab at it without seeing it, and staff can correct me. But I'd like to make a motion that we approve the extension for the project site at 3125. Let's see, it looks like staff's helping me out here.
There you go.
Maybe not. Yeah, approve the permanent extension for 3125 DeForest Road. And adopting resolution 2022, is that 0102?
It's just XX because we don't have a number for what that is until after it's been approved.
Okay, adopting the resolution approving a time extension for an additional 24 months of combined development permit consisting of the CUP for multiple family residential development. Is that enough, staff, or do I need
That's
to?
enough. We got it. We got it.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Herr seconds. So we have a motion by Vice Chair, boy, got to get your name right, Vice Chair McCarthy, and seconded by Commissioner Herr. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure, I'll do the roll call. Commissioner St. John,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodson.
No.
I think you left out Commissioner Herr.
He cannot vote. He's within 500 feet.
No. Commissioner Herr.
Oh, no, I did.
Rana Herr.
Commissioner Herr, I'm sorry, Commissioner Herr.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed.
Great, thank you very much. And we will move on to our final public hearing. That is, oh my goodness. That is the Planning Commission of the City of Marina open a public hearing to take testimony from the public and consider adopting a resolution approving a tentative subdivision map amendment within Phase 1B of the Dunes on Monterey Bay, formerly University Villages specific plan. CEQA determination is an environmental impacts analysis in a prior EIR, so there's none needed for this. And the project planner is Brad Evanston from RGS Consulting. So Brad, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Brad Evanston. I'm a contract member of the planning staff with Regional Government Services. I apologize, I'm actually not the normal planner on this particular project. I assist. Steve Flint is the normal planner, and he is unfortunately unable to be here tonight. So you get me. So let me see if I can get my screen shared and get this presentation going. So
Quick point of order, Chair, if I may.
Certainly.
Just in case there was any doubt, I just wanted to make sure Commissioner Rana was invited back. He would have been allowed to listen to the previous, just not have his screen on, but
he is back.
Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Apologize, Mr. Evanson. Thank you.
Sure, no worries. All right. Go. All right. We're gonna play.
Just go to slideshow.
There we go.
From beginning.
Yeah. Sorry, the buttons were hidden by the little video thing here. Okay, this is an tentative map amendment to Phase 1B for the Dunes of Monterey Bay. This covers the Village Promenade and Town Square. On May 31st, 2005, the City Council certified the EIR and adopted resolutions approving the UVSP, the University Village's tentative map, site plans, building elevations, lighting landscape plans, including the village's promenade and town square areas in phase 1B of the specific plan. In October of 2008, the City Council certified an addendum to the EIR, amending the tentative map and conditions of approval, revised the site plan for phase 1B. And then December 2019, the City Council approved an operating agreement for the Dunes on Monterey Bay, affecting terms of the specific plan development agreement and schedule of performance. And in 2022, this year, Marina Community Partners, who is the master developer of the dunes, has proposed further amendments to the tentative map approved in 2008 to create a 36-lot subdivision consisting of residential, commercial lots, private common lots, open space, and public streets. For regional context, the dunes specific plan is intended to guide the development of 420 acres of former Fort Ord, excuse me, bounded on the west by Highway 1, on the south and east by CSUMB and the city of Seaside, and on the north and south of Imjin Parkway, and extends from Highway 1 east to California Avenue. As you can see here, the dune specific plans are being developed in phases. Phase 1 is nearing completion. Section 5.6 of the adopted specific plan provides for a certain amount of flexibility in response to shifts in market demand, and this amendment has been submitted in accordance with that provision. The Village Promenade occupies northeasterly portion of phase 1B between 1st and 2nd Avenues and north of 9th Street. And that's in this area right here. The existing map layout, this is how the subdivision currently is laid out, or is currently approved as a tentative. Lays out these lots. You can see the roadways established, and then continuing on further down and along other phases of the development. And what they're proposing is this. It's a lot of the similar alignment, but different layout and configuration of the lots to better suit the product that the developer is anticipating will be developed into this phase of the development. The property lines shown in the amended tentative map have been adjusted to accommodate a mix of commercial, retail, live, work, and residential units. The parcels have been adjusted to contribute to private streets and open space areas, the maintenance of which will be incorporated into the commercial association and annexed into the existing commercial association. An existing remainder parcel has been divided to create the linear Park Street right-of-way and adjoining parcels. The grading concept has not changed substantially. Site grading will accommodate the proposed site plan. Street sections have been adjusted to reflect existing road conditions built within the site and how those will transition into the new street sections. And they will all be designed in accordance with adopted specific plan concepts, and improvement plans will be submitted, reviewed, and approved separately from this tentative map amendment. Under regulatory context, policy 4.62 of the general plan, the retail personal service areas north of 8th Street shall be developed such that the greenway serves as a central focus and core of the retail center. And policy 4.63, in areas of retail and commercial use, public parking should be provided on a consolidated basis. Policy 4.64, the University of Villages is intended to provide for shopping and housing needs generated by CSUMB, as well as meet other community housing and commercial needs. The specific plan, section 4.2, create a village promenade and village square framed by storefronts, awnings, and landscaping. Create an environment where people are comfortable walking and spending time. Plazas and other outdoor seating areas should be provided to create gathering places for residents and visitors to enhance a village atmosphere. And in order to create the most desirable community possible, there is a certain amount of flexibility which needs to be provided in this specific plan. And this flexibility allows for shifts in market demand to be accommodated. And the parameters for the flexibility within the specific plan are detailed in this particular section, section 5.6. Submittals for these adjustments shall be made to the city, and determination shall be made at the administrative level by the University Villages project manager. Tentative map submittal may incorporate an adjustment to the boundaries and acreages on file with the city without necessitating a specific plan amendment, provided the total gross acreage of the development area does not change by more than 10% of an increase or decrease over the original gross acreage approved under the specific plan. So you can shift things around from the different planning areas so long as it's not a 10% jump in either direction. Section 16.08.060 of the Marina Municipal Code. Planning Commission shall hold a public hearing and review the proposed tentative map and staff report for the report to the City Council stating whether the tentative map of a standard subdivision is in conformity with provisions of the law and the chapter, and then shall recommend conditions and findings as necessary by Section 66474 of the Subdivision Map Act. And CEQA compliance, again, on May 31st, 2005, the City Council adopted Resolution 2005-127 certifying the final EIR for the UVSP, making certain findings and determinations thereto, adopting a statement of overriding considerations, and adopting a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. The Planning Division staff has determined that any potential impacts that the subject project may generate will be sufficiently mitigated by the measures adopted as part of the UVSP EIR, and no additional mitigation is required. For the alternatives, the Planning Commission can recommend that the City Council approve the application with findings and conditions, or recommend the City Council deny the application with findings, or continue the application with direction to staff and the applicant for additional amendments, revisions to consider. The recommended motion from staff is that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council find the project to be consistent with the EIR certified for UVSP plan, State Clearinghouse number 2004-009-1167, and adopt a resolution approving Phase 1B tentative map amendments subject to findings and conditions provided in the draft resolution. And with that, staff is available if you have questions.
Okay. So, do we have any questions from commissioners? I don't, oh, we do have a hand raised. Commissioner McCarthy?
Thank you, Chair. A quick question on grading, two questions actually, one on the linear park and one on grading. Grading first is probably easier. The presentation mentioned no major changes to grading. I know that there's been some grading done on 6th Street, but that's not part of this tentative map. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the second question, just regarding the linear park, I'm wondering if, for the benefit of myself and maybe my fellow commissioners, if someone from staff can kind of remind us the history of the linear park. I know at one point it was kind of a certain length and then it got reduced, and maybe why it was reduced and what the city got in exchange for that.
Through the chair, I would have to, unfortunately, I'm obviously not a long-term member of the Marina community yet. Been here for about a year now, but I don't know all the history of it. Christy Hopper may know more of the history. My understanding is, though, that there have been several amendments that have come through over the course of the years, including fairly recently, that have amended the overall shape, I guess, of the linear park. It's still linear park, but like there have been varying widths, whether it undulates or maintains a linear width through the park. But Christy Hopper may know more of the history of it than I have access to. She may not.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you like to respond?
Thank you, Brad. Our contract senior engineer, Edri De Los Santos, is on. Edri has been very, very close to this in the past. Edri, would you like to comment on the history? You've got it down pretty well.
The engineering division, Edri De Los Santos. The only thing I know about the width of the linear park revision was in 2019. There was an operating agreement that was established, and which amended the development agreement and amended certain elements regarding phase 2 and 3. Again, as our commissioner forgot, sorry, man. As he mentioned, the linear park revisions did not impact phase 1B. They only impact phase 2 and 3, and they changed the linear park width from 100 feet to 70 feet. As to what the city got back for that, I'm not entirely sure. I think the city council asked the city manager to look into that, and he was going to report back to the council at a later time.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, Chair. And I see the developers online, so maybe if they speak at all, that might be a good question for them as well.
And we will certainly allow them to speak when before I open the public hearing, or maybe I have to open the public hearing first and then they would have the opportunity to speak. Do we have any other commissioners that wish to ask any questions at this time? And I am not seeing any. So, Christy, can you help me with this? Do I open the public hearing first and then the applicants can speak? Yes? Okay, so I will open the public hearing. And if the applicants, I'm trying to see who is here. We have Doug.
We have Don Hofer, Doug
And
Young.
oh, yes, and Don Hofer. So Don Hofer actually has his hand up. Do you promote him to a panelist or we just
did.
leave him as public?
I did promote him.
Okay, great. Thank you. Don, the floor is yours.
There he is.
All right, hopefully that worked. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
We can.
Yep. Oh, now
And
we can
we
see.
can now see you as well.
All right, perfect. And you know, you can promote Doug also if that works for you.
Yep.
Yes.
I did.
So I think the question from Commissioner McCarthy was around the linear parks. And so do you want me to respond to that? Is that what?
Yes, please. A little of the history of the changes of the linear park and maybe how it relates to the rest of that development within the promenade, the 1B area.
So I mean, it's sort of unrelated, but Edry answered some of it. Back in December of 2019, the linear parks generally in phases 2 and 3, which are to the south of this area, were changed to be 70 feet wide from 100 feet wide. And there was a whole array of negotiations that were happening between us and the city at the time. And there were significant concessions that we made to accommodate that, as well as a number of other things at the time. I mean, there's sort of a long story there, Commissioner, but you know, there was significant contributions made to the community park in the area. You know, there was additional affordability levels that were added to the project. I mean, I could sort of go on and on, but I think that's sort of a little bit irrelevant in a sense to what you're considering tonight, because the area you're considering tonight is not necessarily part of that area. The area tonight is, you know, the area north of 8th Street to the town square. And, you know, that area for years was actually in many parts of it narrower. Early in the development schemes that we worked with the city on for the promenade, there were versions that included, as an example, a real narrowing of that park as you got closer to the town square, in order to create a little more continuity with regards to retail offerings. And so there was a plan, and actually, if you look at the most previous map that was approved, tentative map that was approved, and then it was actually recorded, the lot lines, the top portion of that linear park where it actually where it says promenade there at the very top, right in there about where the A is, that whole area of the linear park came almost to a point. It got super narrow as it approached the town square park. And what you have today is something that's much wider. So we're about 55 feet wide at the top part, just adjacent to the town square. And then as you go south, it widens out a bit to about 60.5 feet. And that is the maximum we're able to get in that area. We actually made it a little bit wider than what we had originally planned in discussions with staff, really pushing it as much as we could. And the limitation comes down to really sort of the building footprints and the way the site lays out with parking and the VA/DOD center. And so we've maximized that to the greatest extent that we can now to make it work. And so we think it's going to be a really nice corridor. There's still a pedestrian, multi-use pedestrian trail that'll go up the middle of it. And so it's got all the same functionality. It's going to be, I think, a really fantastic plan when it comes together. We hope you guys will like it as much as we do.
Thank you. So do we have any other commissioners? Oh, no, excuse me. We're in the public hearing phase. I'm sorry. So now we have Michael Owen, who would like to ask a question
Yes.
or make a comment.
Sure. I will, yep, there you go. Let me start the timer. And then Chair Amadeo, typically we do give the applicant an opportunity to present.
Oh, that's, yes, we had
I know-
discussed that.
I know you went straight to public hearing, but it is a fairness issue in terms of them being able to present their kind of side
Absolutely.
of, so, but I didn't know if you wanted to ask them or if you want me to ask.
Yes, I actually would, and I do apologize. That was the question about, do I open the public hearing and then allow the developer to speak? Or do I do the developer first and then open the public hearing?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so Don, do you or Doug have a presentation for us? And Mike, we will get back to you after their presentation is over.
We did, and I'll let Doug jump in here too. We really don't have a slideshow or anything like that tonight. I think staff's done a really good job, so Brad, thank you for your work on this, and Guido and with his leadership, and Edri, the staff's done a great job. This is in many ways sort of a more technical approval. We're talking about sort of a map that, makes the lot lines and the parcelization of the promenade work with the current plan, which I think many of you know is already approved. We are generating improvement plans. Actually, we're preparing our second submittal for improvement plans here to really get this going quickly. I'm reminded oftentimes by our team is, look, the tentative map makes it more efficient. The approval of this tentative map tonight makes it more efficient for staff and for us as the developer to be able to execute this plan. The alternative would have been to do a whole series of lot line adjustments and easements and other things. And so we appreciate your time this evening, commissioners and staff, for the work they've done, because this is really the right way to do it. So it takes the parcelization or the mapping of the various different lots within the area and makes it consistent with the approvals that the city's granted for the project to date. And so, we're excited about moving this along. It's going to be a fantastic area. As we've gotten into the improvement plans, there's some pretty cool stuff we're trying to execute. So we appreciate your consideration tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to Doug. If Doug, you want to add anything.
Thank you, Don. No, I think you've covered a lot of it. This is a more of a technical application, if you will, with the various sheets and improvements that are provided, or the layout that's provided. And it is a bit of a cleanup item from a previous tentative map that has been approved, and a parcel map approved actually on this whole area. So this is a bit of an amendment and a cleanup that does kind of set the stage to move forward with the site plan design improvements that have been approved. As Don mentioned, improvement plans are coming, and it's exciting. I think the commission, the community is going to be very excited as the promenade comes forward. A lot of exciting improvements, and both residential and commercial. Very much a mixed use community. So just encourage that the commission move forward with this and allow us to continue forward and hopefully break ground here in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Now we will move on to Michael Owen.
Great. Thank you, Chair. I've asked to unmute him. Michael, Mr. Owen, are you there?
Yes.
Okay,
when
you're
you're
gonna
ready.
have to speak up.
Okay, I will speak up.
Thank you.
I'm waiting for the clock. Or do I not wait?
Go ahead, Mr. Owen.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hoffer, I was wondering if you could bring up the last map that just momentarily flashed on the screen, and it shows the whole development, 1B, phase 2, phase 3.
That actually is from me, Mike. So if you would like, I can share that with you.
I would like very much. Okay, just hold it there. And then I have to acknowledge that my question is about phase 3, which is irrelevant to the agenda item phase 1B. And I fully understand if there's not a response because it's not due, because I'm talking about phase 3, but I hope that maybe my question would at least be registered. So maybe at some point there could be a response, because I've tried previously, and maybe I just haven't articulated my question clear enough to get the response. But if you look at the very bottom where it says proposed city park in the green spot in phase 3 along 3rd Avenue. Great, okay. So I've gotten a map from the city that clearly shows the footprint for the proposed city park. It's a space that's occupied by 13 barracks currently standing and 2 that have been removed. And those are like 5 barracks on adjacent to the east-west 3rd Street line connecting to 2nd Avenue. As you can see on this map, and what I've seen on other maps, is that the existing 3rd Avenue on this map goes through the city park. And then on some of the other maps, I've seen a reference that says future 3rd Street, which is like north of the existing 3rd Street. So the reason I'm asking this is because when it comes time for the Planning Commission to consider, and there's an arborist report on existing trees, I would be very interested in seeing if it's possible to save existing healthy trees that are already in the footprint for the city park. But because there's this confusion on my part, at least, on is the south side of the city park on the existing 3rd Street, or is it like going to be bisected by the future 3rd Street? That's my question.
Okay. And I'm going to step in at this point and say that because it's not on tonight's agenda, staff has heard your question, I'm sure, and if they want to get back to you on their own, they can, but it's not pertinent to what we're discussing tonight.
You are correct.
And I didn't want to interrupt you, but the question won't be answered tonight. Okay, so do we have any other members of the public who wish to ask a question? If so, please raise your virtual hand. And I don't see any, so I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners for discussion. And if there is no discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Okay, I will motion. I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council find project exempt from CEQA pursuant to state CEQA guidelines, section 153, and adopt a resolution approving the phase 1B tentative map amendment, subject to findings and conditions of approval provided in the draft resolution.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Yes, I second the motion.
Okay, so it was moved by Commissioner Arana and seconded by Commissioner St. John. So can we have, is there any discussion on the motion and second? Yes, we do have Commissioner McCarthy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask the maker of the motion if they would be willing to accept a friendly amendment to add just this language. And the language would be in the middle saying approving amendments 1 through 7 as listed in the staff packet and further depicted on the included map. And if, and I can tell you why I'd like to make that amendment. The motion that staff has provided essentially is telling us to adopt the tentative map. And the tentative map is really a series of maps, a series of depictions. And I know that some of this might seem like semantics, but by specifically calling out that we're approving the amendments that staff has laid out, there's no ambiguity as to what we're approving. If we say we're approving the map, and there's some strange thing on that map that, you know, staff didn't catch or we didn't catch, then I think there's some issues there. If we say that we're approving the amendments that the applicant has asked for, I just think it's a little bit more clear.
I have a question for staff related to that before we see if it's going to be accepted by the maker of the motion. So there are, within the resolution as printed in the staff report, what we've done is in making the motion is just giving the last little bit, the recommendation, but the resolution includes many whereases and several things attached. So it says subject to conditions as attached to this resolution. There are 7, there are no findings, but these would be conditions. So does that cover what Vice Chair McCarthy is trying to do with his amendment?
Yeah, I'm trying to actually get down to where
I think you passed the resolution. I think it was before the maps.
No, this is for Christie's project, the one that
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. Just trying to get through it. Give me a minute. There was quite a bit of material. So.
Page 216.
Yes, I think you get all the way down to about page 200 before you even reach this item.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. So, all right. So amendments 1 through 7. I'm just trying to find where.
Yes. That's it. They're not amendments, they are conditions.
Yeah, those are
Subject
more
to the conditions as attached to this resolution as follows.
Yeah, I mean, you can just, you can say as identified in the reso and subsumed within the resolution. I mean, however you want to phrase it, you can just cross-reference back to the resolution. That's fine.
Okay. And
Sure.
Is that
If
what
I
you
may-
were doing, Vice Chair McCarthy?
No, Chair, the amendments actually are above those 7. So there's 7 above those 7, where it says proposed tentative map amendments, starts with 1 remainder parcel. So just to clarify, what I would be doing is simply suggest that the language say this: I move the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending the City Council find project exempt from CEQA pursuant to state CEQA guidelines, section 15183, and adopt a resolution approving amendments 1 through 7 as listed in the staff packet and further depicted on the included map, the phase 1B tentative map, subject to findings and conditions of approval provided in the draft resolutions. So I'd like to ask the maker of the motion if they would add that, approving amendments 1 through 7 as listed in the staff packet and further depicted on the included map. I think it accomplishes the same thing, but I'm hoping it adds clarity that I think is appropriate.
That's fine.
Okay, and the seconder of the motion?
Yes, I concur.
Okay, great. So we have a motion by Commissioner Rana and a second by Commissioner St. John. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, then I would like a roll call vote, please.
Sure, I can do that. That's fine. Vice Chair McCarthy,
Yes.
Chair Amadeo,
Yes.
Commissioner St. John,
Yes.
Commissioner Marina,
Yes.
Commissioner Herr,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodson,
Yes.
and the names keep changing around. I believe I've called everybody.
I think so.
Okay, sorry about that. Just, yeah, the names kept moving around the screen. So. Motion approved, motion approved.
So thank you. So the motion has been approved, and we will go on to the end of our agenda. There were no action items, no other action items. There were no discussion items. So item 11 is commissioner comments and staff informational reports. Do any commissioners have any comments they would like to make? Vice Chair McCarthy?
Thank you, Chair. Super quick. I just want to thank you for running such an efficient meeting. I think one measure of a good meeting is when we actually finish before 10 o'clock, let alone 9 o'clock, let alone 8:30. So thank you. Fantastic job. And I'm really appreciative of that.
Thank you very much. I kind of kept my mouth shut. And any other commissioners? Let's see. I see a hand up, but I'm trying to see where it comes from. I don't know who the other, I don't know who the other hand is, and it disappeared. Okay, so what about staff?
Staff, yeah. So April 28th, the next meeting is more of a training meeting. We're going to be just going over roles and responsibilities of the commission. Mr. Owen, if he's still on the call, did offer to take newer or existing commissioners to different sites related to trees. Mike, if you're on the phone.
He is. Go ahead, Mike.
And this is not related to the dunes. This is separate. So Mike, you had emailed me about a month ago saying you wanted to take some of the commissioners to some trees. If you want to give your background on that. So.
Yeah, almost like a year ago, I did a little field trip orientation to the tree committee, which is a subcommittee, it looks like we're going to be coming back into existence under the planning commission. So I did that for the new members, and there were a couple of them. And then I noticed that there's another new member, and then the field trip that I did was just on the north side of Marina. And what I had thought when I was thinking of this all to, like at the very beginning, was that I could also go through the the landmark trees over on the south side of Marina. So the field trip last year was like, we started with the row of landmark trees on Beach Road. So I just thought that there's a new member, and there's others that didn't. There were only 2 that went on the field trip, along with Kathy Biala, like a year ago. So I just thought I just see if there's any interest in any others going through the landmark trees, etc., over on the south side of Marina. So I was just going to offer to see if anybody was interested, and if they are, I guess they can email me or.
Yeah, well, we want to make sure we don't create any Brown Act issues. So if any commissioners are interested, please email me, and then I'll interface with Mike. If we have more than a majority of the commission, then obviously it becomes a meeting. So go ahead and email me those who are interested, and then I'll interface with Mike to find a good time for the newer planning commissioners. So
thank you. And just a little minor note, I didn't get St. John's email exactly correct. So, apologize for him being left out of the email I sent everybody else. But so hopefully I can find out the correct email for St. John.
Yeah, absolutely. I can. Yeah, if you email me, Mike, I can send that to you.
And if I can interject here, it's not that it's impossible for all the commissioners to go on a site visit. It's that it has to be noticed and therefore available to the public to also participate.
Right.
And that's why it's important, if possible, to just limit it to a couple of commissioners, because then you're talking about staff time. And I know that Michael doesn't want to make things more complicated for our staff. So, so if possible, just 2 or 3, that still is not a quorum.
Right.
And then we have a couple of other commenters. So, and I see Doug Jan's hand is up, but first we'll go to Commissioner Woodson.
Thanks. And I completely understand the staffing commitment time. But I also would say that we should look at this at a bigger point, because the tree side is a subcommittee, a commission of the planning commission. Mike, assuming at some point we'll come back into this, but the tree commission would come back. And that if there's a chance to have a single message that is put out, and that just means having to put out an open meeting form and say, hey, look, we're having an educational meeting and it involves this, that in the end, it's somebody's time is going to be taken up across the board, but it's also important to ensure that the same messaging is being put out to everybody. And I think that that's a challenge that has potentially existed in the recent past, where things have been put out, not necessarily by Mike, but across the board, where, for example, the oak tree within the Marina kind of botanical committee, they changed a tree designation from being a nuisance tree to a non-nuisance tree. And when that happens, without having that dated, for example, that we made this change and we made this thing, and then we as a commission or the speakers come and use that as a guidance document, that it sets an inconsistency across how we do things. So having that singular message put out, I think sometimes may trump the need to just put out a public announcement that we need to get everybody together, because that can unto itself, by keeping it to 2 people or 3, can keep us also to creating a disconnect across the whole commission, because we may be getting told different things, we may ask different questions and not have the same kind of overarching guidance. And the public has every right to hear that also. And I'm not saying they don't. It's just, I think that there's also a gain from having everybody hear the same piece of data and same information.
Absolutely. And we can even schedule tree stuff for us for a planning commission meeting as well. I think Mike was just trying to be a good resident and offer himself to the community. But yeah, absolutely, Commissioner Woodson, we can definitely have a meeting to
Study
talk.
session.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, is that this would be more of a study session. There are lots of topic areas where it actually would be very important, both for the commissioners and for the public. Not everybody's familiar with the same laws that govern planning commissions, or even our city ordinances. So their design guidelines, things like that are important to commissioners, that all being on the same page is extremely important. So I'm sure that we will have several study sessions in the future. Okay, are there any comments from staff before we adjourn? Anything they would share? Yes, wait a second. Christy raised her hand.
Just very quickly, Guido, I don't want to steal your thunder, and Karen, I don't want to embarrass you, but we do have a new member of our staff who's joining us, being very quiet, Karen Nittinson, and she is our new administrative assistant for community development.
Thank
you. We're very excited to have her there. I don't know, Karen, if you've got a video or anything, but you all will be hearing from her as far as communications with Planning Commission. So we're very excited to have her.
Thank you, Chris. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I did notice that Doug Yant has his hand up, and I know this is staff informational reports. So my question for staff is, can we recognize him and allow him to speak at this time?
Yeah, if he's nice to staff, then yeah, that's okay. So no,
Okay, Doug, you
I'm
have to
joking,
be
I'm joking.
nice, but
I'm
yes,
joking.
you can speak.
Thank you, Chair Amadeo. My first comment was going to compliment staff for the work that they've done, and particularly Christy, Guido, and Brad. I really appreciate your help and working through the Dunes project. As you know, is a very complex project with a lot of moving parts, and I just really appreciate staff's work, and I also appreciate the commission and your patience and voting for this tonight. It just each of these little pieces helps us move the project forward and benefit the community. So thank you for all of that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Doug. Guido, do you have any last comments?
No, I was just going to make my final announcement. So on May 12th, we're having a planning commission meeting. It's going to be focused on ADUs. As everybody knows in the room, there's been a major push by the state to promote ADUs. Alec, the contract planner who was on the call, has done a phenomenal job of creating a new ADU webpage for the city. He's got all the handouts and forms, and he's got a flow chart for approval. We're going to have a Bode Housing come speak to the commission about prefab ADUs that get built literally within a week. And then we're going to have Satish from Habitat for Humanity talk about some of the good work they're doing in the community for ADUs. So May 12th, definitely encourage you guys to come to that meeting. So that was my last announcement.
Great, thank you. So we have a couple of meetings coming up. I look forward to seeing all of you then. And in the meantime, good night. Have a happy Easter and enjoy the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Good night.